Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Paddy G YouTube channel. As always, if you're not already subscribed and you love your rugby league football, then make sure you smash that subscribe button. Treat it as Ola Kawatu treated Justin Olam, and I will make sure your 2023 season is as good as ever. As always, if you do go on to enjoy the video, make sure you smash that like button as well. Drop your round 8 tips down below because the ladder, as close as it is starting to take shape. An incredible Anzac round coming up, so let's not waste any more time and get straight into our round 8 tips. We kick things off at Sydney Olympic Park, Accor Stadium. The Bunnies hosting the Penrith Panthers. One of the few games that we're going to see twice already in the opening 8 rounds of the 2023 NRL season. The Rabbitohs, they're well within a shot. The Panthers are coming off a Golden Point thriller and a 5-day turnaround. The Bunnies were not impressive in the first half last week against the Finns, but their second half was very, very dominant indeed. In saying that though, it's going to be hard for me to ever tip against the Penrith Panthers after an impressive and dominant win over the mighty Manly Sea Eagles. The Penrith Panthers probably had their worst performance of the season so far against the Newcastle Knights. The Bunnies are well within their shot. They've got a 7-day turnaround, but I just think you can't tip against the Penrith Panthers. It is at Olympic Park. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the best home ground advantage for the Bunnies, but I'm taking Penrith and I'm taking them 1-12. Then, no 6 p.m. game, we move straight into the main event on Friday night. The Eels hosting the Broncos, but luckily for the Broncos, this may as well be a home game for them. It's the TIO Stadium in Darwin, which hosts this one, the Broncos. They've had a very lucky draw, and they don't have to go to New South Wales, the superior state, once again. But they are having to take on their best side since the Penrith Panthers, and that is the Parramatta Eels. As good as the Broncos have been, the Eels need to start making up for their slow start. They've picked up back-to-back wins for the first time this season. They're also coming off a 5-day turnaround. The Broncos are 6. I don't know why I'm getting so much into my short turnarounds now, but for some reason I am. But I'm going the home side in this one. I'm taking the Eels, but it's going to be close, and I could see either Mitchell Moses or Adam Reynolds having to kick the match winner. Then 5:30 on Saturday, the Bulldogs, they're at Olympic Park to host the Cronulla Sharks. The Sharks coming off an impressive win, while the Bulldogs, unfortunately, it's been a fortnight to forget, conceding 50 to the Bunnies and then losing to their biggest rivals, the Parramatta Eels, by a substantial margin. The Sharks picked up a great win over the Roosters though, and I think the Sharks, they need to make up for their slow start. I just think the Bulldogs are still a few weeks away from really clicking. They have the worst injury toll in the competition, potentially outside of Melbourne. So I'm tipping Cronulla to get the win. And honestly, I'm sorry, Doggies fans, I see them winning 13 plus. Then the main event on Saturday at 7:35, the Cowboys hosting the Newcastle Knights. This almost feels like a must-win game for the Cowboys considering their pre-season hopes. We were so high on them, but they just haven't been what they were last year. Meanwhile, the Knights, ever since round 1, they are a much improved side when it comes to effort. They're still lacking a bit of execution. They should have definitely won last week, but they shot themselves in the foot for it felt like the entire second half. In saying that, this game is probably my hardest to tip of the round, and the Cowboys, they are at home, which hasn't done much this year, but it's the reason I'm going to tip them. If the Cowboys lose this week, then put a line through them as a contender for the 2023. Still probably too early, even if they go 2-6 to rule them out of top 8, considering they haven't even had their bye yet. But this game's going to be so hard to tip. Kalyn Ponga is back, but for me, that probably is going to be a few weeks to adjust for Newcastle. I actually think they've been better without Kalyn Ponga, but they're still learning to play without him. There's no doubt he's still the best player for the Newcastle Knights. But I'm tipping the Cowboys I see them barely scraping by at home. The early game on the Sunday sees the Finns host the Gold Coast Titans, another Queensland derby, which the Dolphins have been pretty good at this year, and I'm taking them to beat the Titans in this one. The Titans have just not impressed me so far in 2023. I know they're 10th at the moment, but they haven't really beaten anyone. The Dolphins, on the other hand, we know we're going to get out of them. They've played with so much effort every single week. If the Titans are off in the first 20, the game will be over. So I'm taking the Dolphins. They'll have the home ground advantage. They've been so good. It'll be a packed out Suncorp on a Sunday, Arvo. I see the Dolphins getting back in the winners' column. The main game on the Sunday sees the West Tigers looking for their first win of the season, hosting the Manly Sea Eagles, who will be coming off a lot of confidence after that win over the Melbourne Storm. But the Tigers, they'll be hungry. They'll be without Adam Dawaki, which is an absolute shame. Manly, though, we've seen them be complacent. It was only a few weeks ago they dropped a point to Newcastle and they were embarrassed by the Penrith Panthers. The Tigers, they're going to be desperate as they're at Campbelltown for the first time this season. But Manly, even if they're off a game there a little bit, I just think they have a bit too much class for the West Tigers. As a Manly tragic, I'm a bit worried about this game, which is kind of embarrassing. But I'm tipping them to get the job 1-12 because I don't want to jinx it by saying 13 plus. Because who knows, the West Tigers, they're going to be hungry and they are desperate for their first win of the season, especially at home, primetime slot coming off the bye. Then we move into the match of the round. The Anzac Day match returns and it's going to be a packed out Allianz Stadium. It's going to be one hell of a spectacle. The Roosters hosting the Dragons, and this game, you never take into account the form line. So much passion, so much history. The Dragons have been pretty good in this fixture over recent years, despite how successful the Roosters have been. In saying that, the Roosters, they've had a massive turnaround. They've had so much time to prepare for this one. They're going to rewrite the wrongs of last week, and I think they get the job done. But like I said, you take the form line out of this one, it's going to be close. There'll be nothing in it. And I see the Roosters edging by. It's at home. It's going to be a predominant Roosters crowd, at least you hope so. Packed out Allianz, the Roosters get the job done over the Dragons. And then the final game, the other traditional Anzac clash, the Storm host the Warriors in Melbourne. And the Warriors, they are absolutely on fire. They feel like everyone's second favourite team, maybe third favourite. It's them or the Finns at the moment, but they have been so fun to watch. They're going to welcome back a few more stars, which is crazy to think how good they've been. Even without some of their key players. This time last year, they conceded 70 points to the Melbourne Storm. That is certainly not happening this weekend, but in saying that, I think Melbourne will turn it around. They've had also a big turnaround like the Roosters since their last match, and while I do think there'll only be 1-12 points in it, I'm taking the Melbourne Storm at home. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are my round 8 Anzac round tips for the 2023 NRL season. I'm taking Penrith 1-12 over the Rabbitohs, Eels 1-12 over the Broncos and Darwin. The Sharks to put a big 13+ score on the Bulldogs. The Cowboys to edge 1-12 at home over the Knights. The Dolphins, I could see them putting a 13+ score on the Titans. Manly to just survive what will be a very hungry Tigers outfit, 1-12 in Campbelltown. The Roosters to edge out what will be a phenomenal Anzac Day clash at Allianz. And I see the Storm just barely getting by at home in the other Anzac Day clash. But ladies and gentlemen, let me know, what are your tips for 2023 Anzac round? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, you don't want to be a fan of the NRL and not be subscribed to Paddy G. Also, of course, comment your tips if I haven't already said it. Like the video, subscribe. You guys know the rules by now, and I'll see you in the next one.